Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another court reporting video. I know it has been a while that I've filmed a court reporting series type video, but I just feel like I've given a lot of information kind of already about court reporting, and I guess there's so much that I could talk about with court reporting because our job is so vast, but at the same time, I don't know, I feel like I've given a lot of my expertise, so sometimes I don't really know what else to make with court reporting videos other than maybe like day in the lives. Or I know a few people have asked about kind of official court reporting, which means you are working in a courtroom, and I don't have a ton of experience with that. I have subbed in court, so if you want to know more about that, let me know. My mom is an official court reporter, so I could ask her some questions or do a sit-down video with her if she's willing to do that. I know I've talked about that before. So yeah, I just feel like other than that, I've kind of given a lot of information, but that's why I wanted to do this video, because when you guys ask me questions, it helps me kind of know what kind of things y'all are interested in, and then also what to film, because then I can just sit down and answer some of these questions. And I know I've gotten so many comments on pretty much all of my court reporting videos asking questions, you know, saying that you guys are starting court reporting and that these videos are helping y'all, and I'm just so excited to hear that, because our job does need to be put out there more because not enough people know about it, and it is such a good job. So I have kind of compiled a few questions I have gotten in some of my videos, and I'm going to be answering them. Actually, Michael, my husband, has screenshotted a couple of them for me, and I think I've read them about once through, but it's been a while since he even did that. So I'm kind of just answering these without really thinking about them, just kind of on the spot. So yeah, this is just answering some of y'all's common questions, and then also if you have any other court reporting questions, leave them down below on this video, and if you guys want, I can do another kind of Q&A session type video, because I feel like, again, that's really helpful right now for me with what to film, because like I said, I kind of feel like I've started from the beginning of what court reporting is and kind of moved on from there about the machine. You know, if there's anything, I guess, more that you guys are wanting to see, just let me know, because I'm kind of at a loss with what else to share. But like I said, it's really endless. I mean, I could sit down with you for all day and talk about court reporting, but yeah, I feel like I've shared a bunch of knowledge. Hopefully that was really helpful. So I'm just gonna get into these questions right now. So let's pull them up. Okay, so the first question that I see here is, are you still doing court reporting? And I don't know why they asked this question, maybe because I haven't posted a court reporting video in a while, but yes, I'm still doing court reporting. I actually have not been for the past couple months, because I've said this in a few of my recent videos that don't have to do with court reporting, but I have broken my finger and it is in the mend, it is healing. So obviously I have not been working, which I am very thankful that I do work freelance, I work for myself. So it's been kind of nice to be able to just cease work for a while and not have to worry about hurrying up, getting back, and having to deal with like the legality side of it, of calling in, taking sick days, things like that, because obviously I don't have those. So again, there's pros and cons to being a freelance court reporter, working for yourself, self-employed, versus like working in court where you're kind of like on salary, punch in, punch out. So there's pros and cons to both, and I've talked about that. But I am very, very thankful that during this time, I get to just take as much time as I want off. Of course, financially, it's not great, but just very thankful that I'm able to even do that. So I am still doing court reporting, but I haven't in the last couple months because I have been healing. But I'm hoping in the next few months I can get back to work. I think it's gonna be quite a journey, but anyway, God has got that, and I'm trying not to worry too much about it. And it is just crazy that that happened with my finger, which directly correlates to my job. But I don't know, there's a lot of learning in this season right now, but I am very thankful for this kind of job, and I am hoping to get back as soon as I can. So yes, I'm still doing court reporting. Okay, this next question is a really good question. It says, what expenses can you deduct if you work from home as a freelancer? Please say rent. And so this is such a great question, because when I started working as a freelance court reporter, working for myself. And so this was something I kind of had to learn along the way, and for a long time I did my own taxes myself. So every year I would kind of go through my expenses that were work related and figure out what I can write off, and then do my taxes from there. And a really big thing that I would say, which I guess kind of correlates with this question, is if you are a freelance court reporter, every check that I would get, I would put a percentage away into I kind of specified it as like my tax account so that I had the money set aside come tax time, because I always owe. I will never get a return, obviously. I will always owe because I am freelance. So that's been helpful to kind of set the money aside. I also would have a certain card for that account, and I would use that card when I did have work expenses, like if I went to go buy ink or paper or things like that. That way, come time to do my taxes, I can print out those statements, highlight what I need to write off, and it's kind of all in one place, if that makes sense. There's so many kinds of things you can deduct, and I feel like forever in my career I will be learning a little bit more how to do taxes, but I would say get an accountant, because this past year Michael and I did, and I was able to write off a lot more than I originally thought. Like, we had health insurance that we kind of paid out of pocket on our own because both of our jobs did not offer it at that time. Thankfully, Michael's job does now. But for a couple years, we were paying health insurance just kind of out of pocket, like private health insurance. And I didn't know that you could write that off. So there's just so many things that you learn along the way, and it is going to be a journey. But those basic things that are work related, I know you can write off your mileage. So what I do is I count how many depots I had that year, and I just average the mileage from where I am to where most of my depots were, and then I just times that by however many depots I had, so you can write off mileage. There, with rent, it's kind of specific. If you have a certain room, I've heard, dedicated to your office, then you can write off certain percentages of that. But that's why I would say to get an accountant, because I don't know exactly, and I don't want to give like wrong advice, but I know that you can write off, I don't know if it's specifically rent, but like electricity and things like that based on your office, and maybe rent is kind of into that. But I've never found that it's like a huge amount, but I know that you can, and I think we have. It just, like I said, it's not anything huge. Again, I could talk about that for hours, like everything you can write off, but hopefully that kind of answers your question. I definitely would get advice from an accountant because they are really, really helpful. But just staying organized as a freelance court reporter is really, really important. Like I said, putting those taxes away ahead of time, each check you get, and I would honestly put a percentage that's pretty high. It hurt every time, but then come end of the year, we always end up owing more than we thought. Or if we had a little bit extra left over that I've put too much, then that kind of acts as a return for us, if that makes sense. Okay, next question. How long does it take you to finish a 100-page job? This is a very good question. So if you don't know, as we're writing on our machine, it is making pages. That turns into a transcript, and we get paid per page, mostly. We definitely get paid per hour that we are at the deposition, but then of course I come home, work on the transcript, and I don't get paid for the hours that I'm sitting down working on the transcript at home. You just get paid for the hours at the deposition, but we do get paid per page. And so a 100-page job, that is a very decent sized job. I would say that that probably went on for like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, depending on how slow they talk, how fast they talk, how many breaks you've taken. Really, I guess it can range, but that is a very decent sized job. So how long does it take me? Again, this depends on everyone and their workload and how you outsource things, because I 100% do my own work, meaning I take the deposition, I come home, I scope it, meaning I listen to it, and I'm kind of editing as I go with any mistakes that I made. Then I print out and I proofread it. So it's kind of a 3-step process that every court reporter goes through, but a lot of freelance court reporters outsource those second and third steps. So the scoping and the proofreading, they'll either outsource both or one, which saves you a lot of time, because once you take the job, let's say you outsource a scopist, you send it to your scopist, you can go take more jobs and not have to worry about until you need to proofread that. So outsourcing things saves time, and I don't know how much like the money correlates, because obviously you have to pay them. It really depends on what kind of freelance court reporter you want to be. I really like the back end work, kind of more so than I like going to take the job. I like being at home, I like editing, I like perfecting my dictionary, I like knowing what my job, what the transcript looks like when it's being sent out to the attorneys, because my name is signed on the bottom. I want to know what it looks like. Some people outsource proofreaders, which if I had to outsource something, that's what I would do, because I feel like scoping your own work, you were at the job, you heard what was going on. I don't know, I just feel like it's more beneficial to outsource a proofreader. But yeah, so a 100-page job for me, who 100% does all of my own back work, I'm trying to think. I could probably, if I was working pretty diligently and didn't have another job like the next day, I could probably do that in about 2 to 3 days and get that sent out. If the job went pretty well and I was working pretty diligently. Now, if the job was really tough and I'm having to spend a lot more time on the back end, maybe things didn't come out right because they were so technical, it could take me a little bit longer. But that is just me. On a really good job, I can scope about 20 to 25 pages an hour. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Again, it depends on the kind of job. If it was very like yes, no answer stuff, you can fly through that scoping. But if it's a very technical job, sometimes you're doing like 10 to 15 pages an hour. Now that's pretty rare that I'm doing that, very rare. But again, it does happen. So yeah, I would say if it was a decent job, I could get that sent out in about 2 to 3 days. And that's with me doing everything kind of on the back end. I would say more around 3 days. I don't know. I'm a very relaxed court reporter, I would like to say. But if a job went really well and I was like sitting down at my computer for the whole day, I could scope that in a day, proof it the next day, put it together, get it sent out. So I hope that answers your question. It varies, but if you're working really hard, 2 to 3 days on an average job, I would say you can get that sent out. And I would say a 100-page job, again, like I said, is a decent mid-sized job. I would say the majority of my jobs are probably around that, maybe a little bit less, to be honest. I feel like sometimes I get quite a bit of short jobs, but when it starts to get over that 100-page mark, 150-page mark, they pay really well. Okay, next question. Would love to hear more about how you started freelancing. How did you start booking depositions? Did you have to network or just go through job boards? Okay, so with starting freelancing, I kind of knew about court reporting, obviously, ahead of time because of my mom, and she used to freelance. And so I kind of knew I wanted to always at least start out with freelance. I do not plan on working in court as of now, but I knew I wanted to do freelance because of the freedom that you have, and I love being home. So that's kind of how I knew I wanted to do freelance. How did you start booking depositions? Honestly, right away, you will get bombarded. I think once you pass the state exam, I guess they get like a list of like new reporters, and so random firms will just email you, court reporting firms that are trying to hire court reporters because we are in such high need, high demand. But also I had heard about a few firms in my area. I can't even remember if I reached out to them. I honestly don't remember, it's been so long, but you will get bombarded. At least I was, and even now I'll get emails from firms I've never even heard of, somewhere in Texas, and sometimes not even in Texas. Well, I guess usually in Texas because I'm Texas certified. But I'll get emails about, hey, like this is a firm, we need help, can you work in this area, or you know, virtually. But I am picky with what firms I work for. I only work for a few of them and they give me enough work, so I'm happy with that, and I've developed a relationship with them, and I know when they pay, I know their pay, so things like that really help. I would say when you start getting close to being done and graduating and passing your state exam, I would start doing some research in your area. And so whatever big city you're located towards, I would start doing some research, figuring things out, talk to other court reporters that you know in the area about firms. And it's really just a trial and error part for, honestly, I would say like the first year, to where you're really figuring out which firms you like working for, which ones you don't, if you get good cases, good attorneys. And so you really get to kind of cater it to how you want it, but it just takes time to kind of figure out which firms you want to work for. But I hope that answered that question and helped. Okay, next question. What do you do if someone has a strong accent or mumbles and you can't understand them? Great question, because this is so often, and I feel like it's becoming actually more and more common as there's different diversity within our country. So this is the very difficult part of our job. I have had some jobs where I end up crying after the job because of how difficult this is, and this is why I very much so am pro taking in-person depositions. I know there are some people who have never taken an in-person deposition, only take virtual because they have started after kind of COVID happened, and so their whole world is now virtual and virtual depositions, and I take some every now and then. But because of the difficulty with language, with accents, and also with, you guys know how Zoom works, if someone's talking, it mutes the other person out, and my job is hear everything that everyone says correctly. So if I can't hear someone, it's just, Zoom is a mess, to be honest. Sometimes it works well, especially if I know it's like gonna be a short job. Sometimes I'll take it, but virtual depositions, in my opinion, are a mess. Yes, they're convenient with travel, but they're just a mess. So in person, let's talk about in-person accents. Ahead of time, I try to kind of talk to the person, the witness, before the deposition starts, so I can kind of hear their voice. And if I can tell that there's going to be a big issue, like if they speak English well but they just have a heavy accent, I will, you know, mention a couple things before we get started, and I'll say something like, you have a beautiful accent, but if you could maybe slow down for me so I can really understand and get your dialect, that would be great. So I would say something like that maybe before the deposition if I know it might be a problem. And then I also might say something like, I may stop you a little bit more than often just to make sure I hear everything correctly, just to kind of give a warning so that when I am stopping or interjecting, it's not like a shock to everyone. I mean, I interject in every single deposition pretty much for one reason or another, and a lot of times it doesn't even have to do with an accent. It's just because I didn't hear something or someone was talking too fast. So I could do a whole video on interjecting. Maybe that can be another video, because I know that's like one of the scariest things when becoming a court reporter. But yeah, anyway, I've had some horror stories. Now, if someone is speaking a different language, they will get an interpreter. And I actually really like interpreted depositions most of the time because it slows everything down and I can really kind of stay behind and really write everything out, because while the interpreter is interpreting to the witness, I don't write anything because I only write English. So let's say it's Spanish and the attorney asks a question in English, I'm writing that down. Then the interpreter says that question in Spanish to the witness. So I'm not writing anything during that time. The witness answers in Spanish, I'm not writing anything, and then the interpreter answers for him in English, then that's when I go back to writing. So I really like interpreted depositions for that reason. Things do move slower, so it's usually less pages, but you can charge a little bit more per page for an interpreted deposition because it's a little bit more involved. But I really enjoy those as a break sometimes because things are kind of slowed down most of the time. Mumbling, they did ask something about mumbling. I just asked them to speak up or repeat something. Like I said, I could do a whole video on interjecting, but if I cannot hear the person at the time while I'm there in person, what makes you think that when I come home and am listening to something that I'm going to be able to understand that better? There is some instances where I'm hanging on and I can tell maybe there's like a word or two that I'm not quite sure what they said, but I'm hanging on, I keep going because I can tell it's not a point I need to interject. And when I come home, I can make sure that I heard that correctly. And sometimes you can hear it when you're listening back because, I don't know, your mind's kind of in a different space. But for most of the part, if I don't know what they said in person, I stop because I'm most likely not going to be able to know when I'm listening back and figure it out. Like I said, there's some instances where I can, but yeah, if someone's a mumbler, I've never had I've had mumblers, trust me, but it's never been too big of an issue where I need to like stop the deposition and talk to the attorney and be like, hey, can you tell them not to mumble? I haven't really had that issue, but people do mumble, and just reminding them, people who are a witness to deposition are always so nervous. So sometimes they talk fast, they mumble, they talk quiet, but really just interjecting and being confident and asserting yourself and knowing that you are getting a legal record and you need to get as accurate as possible, that just helps me feel like I'm doing my job. Even if someone else gets annoyed by it, well, I need to do what I need to do to do my job as best as I can. Okay, here's another question that a lot of court reporters are kind of scared about, but it says, how often do you have to do readbacks? I was talking to a court reporter and she said she hates her job because lawyers try to embarrass her with readbacks. I had never heard this from anyone, so I was wanting to hear your opinion on this. Again, this is a really, really good question. I'm sorry to the court reporter who said she hates her job because lawyers try to embarrass her with readbacks. I've never been in a situation where I feel like a lawyer is trying to embarrass me. I feel like that's a whole other issue besides just reading back. I feel like that's a lawyer problem. Don't work for that lawyer anymore if they don't respect you and they're trying to embarrass you. Now, if they are concerned that you are not getting the record and maybe that's why they keep reading back, that's a whole separate issue, and you maybe need to like reevaluate some things and figure out before you keep taking depositions that you can read back. Reading back is scary. Reading back is way scarier in my opinion than interjecting because again, we do make mistakes, and so if there is maybe a hard section and let's say an attorney asks you to read back that hard section, I get so nervous every time they ask me to read back. I shake. I know no one can like notice it. But usually I have it pretty dang perfect every time, thank the Lord. And also sometimes I can tell when we're getting to a point where it may be possible that the attorney asked me to read back. There's a couple instances where I can tell that's gonna happen. So if an attorney is kind of getting annoyed with the witness and their answer, like either they're not answering the question or they just keep rambling on, and I can tell the attorney's getting annoyed, sometimes they have asked me to read back the question, kind of their original question, to just say it back to the witness so that he'll just answer the question. Now, I haven't had that too many times, and there's a couple attorneys that I can think of in particular that do that. And it doesn't really bother me, it's just a tactic that they have. It has nothing to do with me. It's really more so the relationship between them and the witness, because the witness is not really helping out with any of the answers, not answering questions. So that's an instance. And then also, if the witness is taking a long time to answer a question, or again, kind of going round about the question, and they ask the attorney to repeat the question, sometimes the attorney will just repeat the question, or they will ask me to read back. And honestly, sometimes because the attorney can't remember the original question that they asked or how they asked it, or again, if they just kind of want it to be an official question where it kind of puts the witness on guard that I'm reading the question to them. So those are really the two main instances that I get asked to read back. I would say, I don't know, I don't get asked to read back every job, but I would say it's often that I get asked to read back, but usually it's just once or twice during a job. But it does help keep me on my toes. And again, that helps me even more so be okay with interjecting and stopping someone if they're talking too fast or I can't hear. Because what if then they ask me to read back, and let's say I dropped a few words because I couldn't keep up or something, and then they ask me to read that back. So a lot of attorneys have grace with you, but you want to be able to read it as accurately as they asked it. And just thankfully, most of the time that has been the case for me. I don't think I've ever had an instance where I just didn't have it. And sometimes a word may not come out, but you can kind of read your steno off to the side and guess kind of your trash writing that you wrote, what you were trying to write. So yeah, again, I could talk about that particular part for a long time about reading back. And yeah, that is probably the most scary part, because then you're kind of put on the spot and you're kind of on display for how good you're doing, I guess, even though it doesn't always correlate to how well you are a court reporter, but I don't know, most of the time it does. So I do have to do readbacks, but it's not it's not every job. I would say like 50% of the jobs I have to read back at least once. And sometimes those attorneys ask you to read back like 5 or 6 times in a deposition. But again, usually that's a tactic reason of why they're asking you to read back, which is not fun. But it's not really, it's not like the attorney's mad at you. But anyway, hope that, I'm getting anxiety just thinking about reading back, oh my gosh. Okay, this next question says, Chloe, I'm 57 years old, been in the court system for 32 years, and decided to go to court reporting school as a second career. I start next month. I've enjoyed your videos reference, I guess, court reporting topics, especially this Q&A video. This is a Q&A video that they commented on. Any advice for older folks beginning a court reporting program? So yes, any age can do a court reporting program. It is a great job to even do kind of part-time if you're wanting to not work so much, because if you do freelance, then you can kind of work however much you want. So that's really a good side of it, and that's why I do really think any age can do it, because you can cater it to your own when you are a freelance court reporter. So any advice? I don't know. I would just say enjoy it. Enjoy it and make it your own, and don't make it too stressful, because this job is very stressful and is very important. So I would say just have joy with it and take it slow, and yeah, really set up those boundaries for yourself of how much you want to work and figure that out. And if you're wanting to work full-time, great, and know that, I don't know, court reporting is really hard too. Like the schooling is hard, and the state exam can be difficult, and passing that state exam, but once you do it, then you can have the freedom and the luxury to have a really great job and make good money with working not crazy hours if you don't want to. So that's what I would say for an older person starting the program, is that yes, you can do it. Kind of know going into it, the schooling and the state exam is going to be hard, but then once you get out there, you can slow it down a little bit and cater it to how you want to. So hopefully that helps. Someone asked, is there a school for court reporting in Houston, Texas? And I went to school around that area, not in Houston, and sadly the school I went to is not open anymore. I know I've actually had a few questions about that, and I've said that in a couple previous videos, but the school I went to is not open anymore, so it's not an option. but there's so many online programs pretty much everywhere, and I would, for anyone who's looking for an online program, because a few people out of state have also asked me what programs. Of course, I don't know of any schools outside of Texas necessarily, because I haven't ever looked into that. But if you go onto the NCRA website, which is the National Court Reporters Association, they will have more information on there, and then maybe get plugged in with someone who can help you with your specific state. But with Houston, I have heard of Mark Kislingberry's school, and I think he has in-person and online. I'm not sure. I know that he has a whole theory that is very different than the theory that I learned, meaning kind of how you learn to connect the phonetic sounds and the keys together. Of course, the keys all mean the same thing on every stenograph machine, but how you learn and put them together is kind of your theory. So I know his theory is a little bit different from the one I learned, but I have heard really good things about his school. So in the Houston area, that's the main one I kind of know of. Okay, so those are all the questions that I'm going to answer in this video. My camera is about to die. I feel like I've been talking forever. So hopefully these helped answer some of your questions, even if you didn't comment these questions. I feel like these are pretty common ones and really, really great questions. So again, like I said, if y'all have any more, leave them down below. Let me know if you want me to do another Q&A video. If you want a specific type video, let me know, and hopefully it's not months before I do another court reporting video. But like I said, I love talking about this, and I feel like I've shared a lot, so I'll continue it if you guys want me to and want to know more. So yeah, just let me know, and I hope this video helped, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.